First of all, welcome back to the show. Second of all, I've got to say, the brand new book, Remember Who You Are, got it here in the studio, read it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's an absolutely beautiful piece of telling us what we're about and what we should be remembering.
Well, that's very kind of you, Jim. Actually, I'm sitting here now, halfway through the next one. So I've been sitting here for about 12 hours a day since early May, and it's just, you know, sometimes in whatever area of life you're working in, you wake up one morning and everything fits. It's like the kaleidoscope's moved and suddenly everything's morphed into clarity. Well, that's kind of, something like that's happened to me in the last few months, and what's happening gets clearer and more obvious, and the more it does, the simpler it gets. And also because most of the complexity is to hide the simple goings on behind the scenes, but also the more the world makes sense in what's happening and why certain things are done the way they are.
Right. Your awakening began back in the early 90s, and from what you just said there, David, it's not stopped.
Well, I don't think it can, unless, you know, you find yourself a niche and sit in it. You know, I had used this analogy years ago of coming out of the womb, and you start your journey down a road. Now, you can have a tent on your back and pitch it after a few strides, and you'll read the sun and believe the date, you know.
Yeah.
And you can keep going and go into some form of politics or environmental a group or whatever. You can then start to realize there's some kind of big conspiracy going on in relation to the world that we can see, like banking and politics and corporations and what have you. But if you keep walking, because you've got no tent, and I am not interested in tents in any way, shape or form, then you must keep moving and you must keep awakening, because the idea that anyone within the restrictions of this physical, what we call physical world, it's not really, thinks that they know it all, or know all that they need to know, are kidding themselves. And it's really a statement about human awareness and human perception of everything, that so many can believe that everything they need to know is between the covers of a book written by who knows when, in who knows what circumstances, in all the different religious connotations that this one book and you have all you need to know kind of idea, it's just kind of universal. Socrates in ancient Greece is supposed to have said, wisdom is knowing how little we know. And when you hold that, then you're constantly open to new information. And the other thing, Jim, is that if you come to this with a belief system to defend, whether it's religious, political, cultural, whatever it is, then you're only going to go so far, and then you're going to stop, because once the information is leading you into areas that challenge that belief system, that preconceived idea, what I would say, that program, then you're going to dismiss it. You're not going to go there. And, you know, and I say good luck and all the best to anyone who's investigating any level of what's going on in the world in a sense that's beyond what the mainstream media would do, which is basically nothing. But I do see so many people in the conspiracy research arena that's grown to be vast now. I mean, it was a lonely road when I started out, I'll tell you, but you know, there's so many more people coming into it, and that's great. But I see them often sitting in their own prison, where they will go so far that their belief system will allow, but if it's going to challenge that politically, religiously, or whatever, then they ain't going there. And it's funny with that analogy of you know, walking down the road, and some people pitch their tent here, some people walk a bit longer and pitch their tent there, that wherever you pitch your tent in terms of this is my perception and I'm sticking with it, that dictates how you see other people. So other people that are further down the road before they've pitched their tent, to you, they're extreme. And this applies at whatever point on that symbolic road you are. So even though there are many people that have walked quite a distance down that road and got into this whole area of global manipulation and conspiracy, they will still see me as extreme because I've gone into areas that they will not go into because it challenges their whole sense of reality. So it's a point. Your point of perception comes from the point where you decide here and no further. And we surely have to keep our minds open all the time and realize that we don't know it all, and thus there's always more to know.
David, it's Steve here.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
I've been a reader and a listener and a watcher of yours for a number of years, and you've certainly opened my eyes and shifted my perception of the global elites and the various things you've followed over the years. What I found interesting now is that there's almost a cult of atheism that's rising with the Dawkinses, and one of the Penn and Teller guys is writing books on atheism. It's almost as if people are kicking against dogmatic religious views and ideologies, and yet, because it's almost as if they think that something is not right, and yet they're coming with an almost similar dogmatic atheist viewpoint.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that is a really good point. Religion, when people think of that word, they think of priests in frocks and the usual stuff. But a religion, to me, is a unshakable, immovable belief system. And what I see with people like Richard Dawkins, who I debated with years and years ago at the Oxford Union, actually was on my side. It was science v. religion, and I disagreed with both of them. So, but I watched him at work at close hand, and I've seen him many times, and he is a religious fanatic from my definition of that. In that he's got a dogma that says, basically there is no greater reality, and that, we're a cosmic accident, life's a bitch, and then you die, which is fair enough. That's fine. But don't tell me that you are anti-religion when you have a religious belief system. You just don't call it that name. He's the high priest of this. And I think that this whole reality, and to a very large extent this conspiracy, is maintained by polarities and bouncing people between them. When, virtually nothing is black and white. It's always a shade of gray. And so you have on one side the rebellion since the peak of its powers against religious dogma. So because the religious, my father's a good example, actually. He was a very, very intelligent man, my father, but he had very bad experiences of religion. In one of the things he did was come up from North Africa through Italy at in the latter stages of the war. And he saw in places like Naples abject, gut-wrenching poverty all around these extraordinarily wealthy churches, and the money was still expected from these people. So he had a really bad experience of religion, and as a result, he threw the baby out with the bathwater, and he rejected any idea of life continuing after the end of the body. And I see this a lot. People will react against or rebel against something which is a polarity, but they'll bounce to the other polarity. And you don't have to be an atheist to reject the religious version of God. I mean, what I'm saying is that there is one infinite awareness, and we are all expressions of that infinite awareness. Therefore, instead of focusing on, a deity, I've said many times, I think, that there was genetic manipulation of the human form. And one of the things that they did was take a vertebrae out of the neck so that humanity is always looking up.
Yes, I've seen this in your videos.
We have to look up to heaven. We have to look up to deities. We have to look up to scientists and doctors and all this stuff, when actually we're all expressions of the same one whole. It's just that, some people have an awareness that's expanded enough to see that, and others don't. Because for me, what we are is a point of attention. We are a point of awareness.
We are the here and now, is what you're saying. Yeah,
well, we're the here, the now, with the everything and nothing. We are all possibility, because for all possibility to exist, then that all possibility must contain everything and nothing, everywhere and nowhere, or it's not all possibility. The point I'm making here, though, is that we are a point of attention. So when we quote die, our point of attention moves from what I call body-mind, which is the body locks us into this narrow band of frequency that science calls visible light, which is just so tiny it's pathetic. And when the body dies, what I say, the biological computer ceases to function, our point of attention moves. And this is why when you read the endless accounts now of near-death experiences who've left the body when the body has died for a short time, and they tell the story of an incredibly expanded reality and sense of reality, where past, present, and future are all happening at the same time. And they're able to decode multiple realities in the same moment. Now, what's happened is their point of attention has moved from out of the limitations of the body, which is focusing attention in this five-sense reality, into a much more expanded reality. So when you are having an experience in this world through a body, your focus of attention can be concertinaed into a tiny, tiny little band of can I see it, touch it, taste it, hear it, feel it, therefore it must exist, and if I can't, then it doesn't. Or you can have an expanded point of attention where you're aware of the five senses, you're in the world from that perspective, but you have contact with higher levels of your awareness, not some guy in a spaceship, higher levels of your expanded levels of your own awareness. And so you're in the world in terms of your daily experience of it, but you're not completely of the world in the point of perspective from which you're looking at it. Yeah. And someone in that state, and there are more and more like that now, will see the world completely differently to someone who's locked away in the five senses almost entirely, because they will not be able to perceive what these other people are perceiving, and thus their only way of explaining it is the person must be crazy.
Right. Which is what's going to bring my next point on to there, David, and you did it well. Conspiracy theories. That's a mainstream media, an establishment term for people who think outside of the box.
Yes, but the great irony in that is that of course there are such things as conspiracy theories where you've not yet nailed the solid information in a certain area or about a certain event, but you know from experience that it's following the same pattern as the ones you have nailed with that level of information. But in the totality of what's called conspiracy theory is an extraordinary amount of documentable evidence, far greater in support of that perception of the world than ever the BBC can produce on its 10 o'clock news. Because basically what that's doing overwhelmingly is just repeating the official version of everything. You see people, I mean, they've got a reporter called Ben Brown who fronted up the appalling coverage of the Libya atrocity. There's another guy called Fergus Walsh who's the science and medical correspondent. And you listen to them and watch them, and all they're doing is repeating the official story. They're not questioning it, they're just repeating it. And so where do you get your information from? Well, this government department said that. The medical association said this. The drug companies say that. This scientific body says that. Yeah, they're from the system, in other words. And to avoid doing real journalism and then challenging that system, they just dismiss the alternative as conspiracy theories, because if they don't, then they have to look in the mirror and realize that they're not journalists at all. They're just part of the great public relations edifice of the official version of everything.
The corporate world rules.
Yeah, and the other
what
thing
I thought about as well, David, sorry to interrupt, that the official story of our creation is in fact a conspiracy theory. The official truth, or the line that we're fed, that we came from the Big Bang and therefore everything expanded out. That's an official line, but that could almost be a conspiracy theory in itself.
It's all theory. One of the things that I've found over these nearly quarter of a century of researching this now is that when you follow a scientific norm, a scientific accepted fact, and you follow it back to its inception, you find that it was the theory that has become fact simply by repetition.
Yes.
And becomes then, and everyone knows that. I mean, when I started questioning the nature of the moon at Warren, of course, the first thing you do is you go down and you look at what mainstream science is saying about the origin of the moon, and it's just ludicrous. You follow the Big Bang theory back, and it becomes ludicrous in the sense that how it began and to the extent of which it is now accepted fact. And the other thing is, of course, is because everything takes the norm as its point of reference, the scientific norms, ludicrous as they may be if you follow them back to their inception, they're the ones that get in the textbooks. And generation after generation are taught these things as if they were fact. And this is why one of the greatest challenges in people that want to expand their awareness is not actually expanding their awareness, because we're already expanded awareness. That's what we are. Mm-hmm. It's got through the process of deleting the programs that have put us in these little bubbles of reality, these senses of limitation and I can'ts, which are programmed into people from cradle to grave, not least the ludicrously named education system. In the end, this whole conspiracy to enslave humanity en masse, it's a mind game. It has to be. It's not enough of the people in full knowledge of what they're doing. The number in full knowledge of what they're doing compared with the population is tiny. So they can't control that population physically. There aren't enough of them. So what they have to do is do two things. They have to recruit people to impose their will from the target population. These are your government administrators, uniforms of police and military. But crucially, there's not enough of them either to do it. But so they have to program the perceptions of the people so that their perceptions become the behavior and responses of the people, which allow the conspiracy to go on unchecked. And people talk about conspiracy theorists. I love the coincidence theorists myself.
There's far too many, though.
All these people that look at all these things happening in such a synchronistic, interconnected way, all pushing the world in the same direction of more centralization of power and erosion of freedoms and suppression of opportunities, and yet it's all a coincidence. It's all happening by chance. I mean, it's insane. But then again,
Yeah, exactly. But we're coming up to a very important time of 2012. The Olympics are going to happen. Something big seems to be brewing, the apprehension in the air. That's not a coincidence, because it's not just about the games. There's something bubbling under, David, and I want to get into that now.
Well, it depends how deep you want to go, really. I mean, deep, multiple levels. And I've written quite extensively about this particular area in the last few weeks because of what's happening in Britain through
and people
summer.
Can find that at your website, davidicke.com.
Yeah, and what we're looking at is a mass rituals, and there's some background for anyone new to this, which needs laying out, and that is that humans are energy fields, electromagnetic energy fields, at least on one level. The Earth has an electromagnetic energy field. I mean, that's the Earth's energetic field, and the energy of people can be trawled. It can be vampired, and if you know what you're doing, and these people do, they're all these initiates of very deep secret societies and satanic groups, which are the people that are in the royal family, in the political world, in the banking world, and all the rest of it. There is this. I mean, it takes a long time to explain it in fully and in detail, but basically they're parasiting human energy. And how they do it is to gather large numbers of people together to focus on something. I said earlier that we are a point of attention, and that point of attention can be focused on, say, a symbol, a person, whatever. And it's a simple energetic fact that, which is summed up by the line, energy flows where attention goes. When you're focusing on something, then you are creating an energetic channel between yourself and that something. It might be a symbol, and this network of families has a large number of symbols which they put all around us. And when you focus on that symbol, you lock into their vibrational band. And when you lock in, it's like tuning to a radio station. Now a channel has been opened that your energy can be trawled. And when you gather people together in very large numbers, and you focus, for instance, on the British royal family, then you are focusing on energy fields that are resonating within the band that this network operates on, this energy vampiring. And thus, that focus creates a channel through which your energy can be trawled. So if you gather vast numbers of people together in London, all focusing on the royal family, and these people call it pomp and ceremony. No, it's not. It's ritual. The colors dominated by red and black. That's satanic ritual. That's what it's all about. You look at any royal, I mean, my goodness me, how many have we had in the last few weeks? Any royal kind of occasion or ritual, as I would call it, it's dominated by red and black. And if you go to a football match, people say, oh my goodness, mate, the atmosphere was incredible. The hairs on my neck stood up. What is that? That is the collective electromagnetic field of the crowd creating that electromagnetism, which makes you feel like that. And it's the same with all these crowds in London. And in terms of the symbols of this network, one of the key ones, going right back to antiquity, is the flame, the lighted torch or the flame
of Semiramis.
Yeah. It goes back to people, it's symbolized in history by people like Prometheus, who was supposed to have got the flame from the gods and given it to the people. That's a kind of spin on that. But that's kind of background of where the Olympic flame came from. All this stuff comes from antiquity, and the band of advanced esoteric occult knowledge that has been brought through history to present day by these bloodlines and these secret societies and what have you. So at the same time, this summer, we've had this focus on the flame. The flame's going all around the country. Of course, one of the great focuses of attention during the Queen's Diamond Jubilee was the 4,200 beacons, flames, all over the country and the Commonwealth, finishing with the Queen lighting that one at the end outside Buckingham Palace after the music concert and stuff like that. By the way, the music concert, I love that. I mean, Elton John singing Crocodile Rock it was hilarious.
Yeah, well, we're heading into the reptilian now, and I want to get into that as well. But continue, David.
Yeah, kissed Elton John.
So you've kissed Elton John. Hang on a second, David. Hang on. I'm in the studio with a man who kissed Elton John.
Oh, really?
He was quite a nice kisser. I must be honest.
Okay, let's continue.
So we're moving now to this Olympic Games when absolutely the focus is going to be on the flame, and they're going to have this opening ceremony which is going to build and build with the focus of the attention of the country on it, and it's going to culminate with the lighting of the flame. And you know, I go into this in detail in my books, but the flame is absolutely in so many ways at the heart, at the center of their ritual and their symbolism. And what this does, it draws energy to them, and it draws energy into London. Oh, someone's just calling me. I'll knock that off. Hold a sec.
That's all right.
It draws. Don't call me when I'm working. Okay. It's drawn in energy into London, and when you look at why London is such a center globally for this whole conspiracy, especially the City of London, the financial district, the London Corporation with its Lord Mayor and so forth, which is just totally controlled by these secret societies. There's a reason why these families focused in Britain, focused in London, and from there created the vast empire on which the sun never set, the British Empire. It's because the energy field of the earth is, on one level, it is a network, a web of force lines. And when I say force lines and energy lines, I'm talking about information. The meridian lines in the body that acupuncture uses to heal people by balancing out the flow of energy using the needles. That's an expression in the human body, which is what happens on a planetary level as well. And where these energy lines cross, there is a major a vortex, or a small vortex if it's two lines crossing. But you get points on the planet where lots and lots of these energy lines cross, and it creates a massive vortex of energy. And what happens in that vortex, in terms of what it's impregnated with, what information or whatever programs it's impregnated with, that information then goes out from that center point, like a heart point. It gets pumped out right across the planet and influences the information programs that are in the Earth's energy field that we are interacting with all the time. And Britain in general, these islands, it is the heart center of this pattern. This is why you've got more standing stone circles, ancient earthworks, etc., in Britain per square mile than anywhere else in the world. And London is at the heart of it. And so they have centered themselves in the heart of this global pattern, because what happens at that point affects the world. What they're doing at the moment, and this is why when London went for the 2012 games, I said to my family and friends immediately, there's no way they're not going to get it. Because and London Olympics, it has such a synchronicity about it. There's no way they're not going to get it. And they got it. And it just synchronized because they plan these things enormous amounts of time in advance. So you're running through all the rituals, which I've broken down in articles, what they actually mean, like the river pageant and stuff in the Diamond Jubilee. And that's running in now to the Olympics. In fact, with the flame going around the country at the same time, they were interacting with each other. Yeah. And you know, the flame being carried around the
torch relay
actually is not, as most people will believe, because that's the impression they're given. That didn't come from ancient bloody Greece.
No,
the flame did. But the relay through the streets didn't. That has only been going on since the Nazi Olympics of 1936, and it was arranged by Goebbels. Mm-hmm.
But people hold it in such veneration these days.
I know. So what you've got, and of course the Nazis, I mean, I've written about this seriously, extensively, and so have other people. The whole of Nazism was based on this ancient knowledge. You know, you look at the SS and stuff like that, it was all broken up into levels that related to the ancient secret societies and what have you. So the fact that, you know, they focused on the flame and started this relay stuff was all coming from this ancient knowledge of what the flame meant and what the flame means. So it's a ritual. The Nazis were absolutely obsessed with ritual, as these bloodlines are in general. This is why you had the Nuremberg rallies with all the colors and the lights.
And the flames.
And that's what the Olympic torch relay is. It's a ritual. Of course, most people, vast majority of people don't know that. But it's making an energetic journey right the way through the country. And where's it going to bring that? To London. And you know, to people listening to this for the first time, I'm sure they're going, what? This is this far out. But when you've studied it for the best part of 25 years, it's so bloody blatant because the same things happen everywhere.
So it is in effect a magical ritual,
Exactly.
a rite to bring the energy from four corners of this country back into London to then do what? Disperse for their own energetic gain.
This is an interesting question, and I can't answer it for definite. We're going to have to wait for the experience and see what happens. Now, it is possible that this whole energy ritual is just about focusing it in London and trawling energy, because, you know, as quantum physics understands, or the deeper levels of it anyway, there is no time and space. Everything is everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't understand why particles can communicate instantly with each other when they're billions of miles apart. Well, the answer is there's no billions of miles. That's the illusion. They are actually the same energy field, and thus they can act instantly in response to each other. And thus, if you're sitting in Australia and watching the opening ceremony or watching the games or focusing on the flame or whatever, you have made an energetic connection to it, and it can affect you. And of course, the Olympic Games, which is why they if not hijacked it, started it from the beginning in terms of the modern games. It's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, television audiences of all time, and thus you've got those billions of people that you can attach to through focus upon them. So that's one level of it, which is possible. That's just what it's about, because it's certainly about that. But I said earlier that when you do something which creates an energetic impact within these major planetary vortexes, like London and Britain in general, then you send that out across the Earth's energy field through all these ley lines, meridian lines system that I'm talking about. And thus, if they gather this energy together and focus it on London, and then, I'm not saying this is going to happen, I'm just saying how it works, and then have a massively negative event in London during the games or possibly just afterwards, then the impact is going to be on a planetary scale, massively in this country, but on a planetary scale is going to be enormous in its effect. And if people, find this hard to believe, I do understand that. But, there are organizations that have got technology around the planet which is measuring the Earth's energetic field. When 9/11 happened, there was an enormous spike.
That's right, yeah.
Field, because that field was being impacted by the emotional energy produced by the collective global response to the horrors of 9/11. Now, if you focus all this energy, as they've done through the Jubilee and the Olympics, on London, and then you encode it with the energy of some horrific event, then that is going to impact on the collective psyche of humanity in a significant way. That is possibly what they're planning. I don't know.
Well, sorry, David, is it about generating a turmoil to, one, again, troll that catastrophic, that weird energy, and secondly, to bring in something that you have deemed the problem, reaction, solution system?
Well, yes. I mean, for people who haven't come across that, it's a name I gave to the most powerful and effective mass mind and manipulation technique that these families and networks use. Problem, reaction, solution. You want to change the world in a certain way. You know that if you openly say this is what we're going to do, then you're going to get a massive anti-reaction from the people. Don't say what you're going to do openly. You create a problem covertly, like 9/11, which was nothing to do with 19 hijackers that couldn't fly. And you then carry out your manufactured problem, whether it's banking collapse or a terrorist attack, whatever. You then use your unquestioning media to tell the people the version of that event you want them to believe, i.e. these guys that couldn't fly Cessnas flew wide-body jets in ways that professional airline pilots have told me they could never do. And then you offer the solution. After you've had the public reaction of, fear, outrage, do something, then you have the solutions. And those solutions that you offer to your covertly created problems are changes in the world that you want to advance your agenda of global control. So if you look at what's happened since 9/11, justified by 9/11, there's been invasions of countries, there's been extraordinary levels of freedom destruction, which is just reaching catastrophic levels now. And if you look at what is happening in London as we speak, the security operation is absolutely insane. They have more troops at the Olympics than they have in Afghanistan. They have a vast number of private security people who are running the operation with the military. They have an aircraft carrier in the bloody Thames, this big naval ship in the Thames. They're having ground-to-air missiles around London. And on and on and on it goes. And they've got this fence around the Olympic area, these massive security. It's absolutely insane. And a lot of new security has been put in, justified by the Olympics, surveillance technology all around London, they ain't going to take away when the Olympics are over. And it's just an excuse to put it in and leave it there. And so London will be, the Republic of London will be under far more detailed surveillance than even there were before the Olympics, and the same in other Olympic venues all around the country. And it's all there. All the pieces are in place. We've just got to wait and see what the plan turns out to be. But
have you had, sorry to interrupt you, have you had any of your, in quotes, insider friends give you any indication that something is going to go off?
Well, you can't trust people in that arena, really. I mean, there are people in conspiracy research. I won't mention their names. There's no point. But they say my insider source told me this and all that stuff. It turns out to be total rubbish. Because most of the stuff that comes out of these spook areas is not information. It's disinformation.
Sure.
Disinformation is never not true, or rarely, because you'd suss it. It's a lot of things that are true, and then they spin it with what's not true to take people to see what happens. What the good thing about getting as much about this out before it is that it for people who become aware of this, it dilutes the effect of the of what's being done, because people can see that actually this has not happened by accident or happened by some chance of terrorists or whatever. It's been coldly calculated and done to get the response from the people that allows the solutions to be put into place. But I was listening to an interview the other day with a guy who claimed to be an undercover journalist who specializes in undercover work, who has gone undercover with a security firm.
Yes, I heard this.
G4S.
Yeah, G4S, and it's interesting what he said, that actually behind the scenes they've got all these numbers of people, but they're not trained, and they are not going to be good at what they do, and how a lot of the security machines are going to be turned off, so they're not going to be working anyway most of the time. So what it tells you is that all this security is not there to make people secure, it's there for some other bloody reason. Yes. According to him anyway, he was told by one of the trainers for the company that in effect something would happen, a defining moment, I think the phrase was, that there would be a defining moment for London after the games, not during the games. But see, this is all you can do when you're at this point in trying to understand something is pull the strands together as best you can. But unless someone spills it who's credible, then it's compartmentalized into such fiercely defended little groups. In so many ways, you only know about it when it happens. But certainly, when you put the pieces together, something's going on. You'll see the nature of that something in the next few weeks, whatever it may be.
So should people be in fear then around the Olympics? Should they stay away from London, do you think?
I don't think anyone should be in fear about anything, because one of the great things that they want us to do is to go into fear. And interestingly, that connects into what we've been talking about, because everything has a vibration. An emotional state has a vibration. A color has a vibration. That's why they use black and red in satanic rituals and black and red in the pomp and ceremony of royal mass rituals. It's because there's something about the frequency, the resonance of red and black, which suits the outcome they want from the rituals. So it's all that, and they are in a very the vampire structure is in a very low vibrational state, because anyone that wants control over, that has no empathy, that has no compassion, is in a very low vibrational state. So for them to trawl human energy, it has to be in a low vibrational state. They can't trawl joy, but they have to pull people individually and collectively into a emotional and mental state that is within the band of frequency that they can connect with. And that band of frequency turns out to be fear and all these sub-frequencies of fear. And thus, if you look at the television news and you look at the world in general, we constantly be given reasons to fear. And what I say to people is, let the information that's coming out about this conspiracy, let that be not something to fear, but something to empower you, because we're bringing the secret and the hidden. Well, you can't do something about something you don't know exists. We're bringing it into the scene. And thus, let's see it in that terms, not in terms of fear. Oh my goodness, but in terms of, whoa, hey, now we're getting a fix on what's going on. We've got a chance of doing something about it. So I would say absolutely don't get into fear. But you don't have to be frightened not to walk out in front of a car when you're crossing the road. You just have to be aware that if you walk out in a road without looking, then there's a chance you're going to get hit. So don't do that, not out of fear, but out of awareness of the consequences. And in that sense, if I put it this way, it's not for me to tell people what to do. But if I lived around London, particularly around the Olympic site, I'd be out of there for the period of the Olympics and maybe for a little while afterwards. But of course, money, people's need to earn a living, people's life situations, it means that most people can't do that. But I'd certainly do that if I could. It's not to say something's going to happen, but I think there's a very good chance that it's not going to be a nice place to be.
I quite agree. And the big thing for you coming up post the Olympics, of course, is remember who you are. Wembley Arena on the 27th of October, where you can then say to people, look, this is where we've been. This is where the control system has you. And this is what we're going to do about it. Now let's, pick our feet up and start marching. And, you've done this for years, David. I'm preaching to the converted, but I think that you have got such a groundswell of support now that things have got to happen for the more positive.
Well, yes. I mean, it's interesting, and I have to smile sometimes when you get into an interview and you don't know where it's going when you start, and it goes in a certain direction, and things keep coming in that relate to that direction, and that's what's happening here, because I do everything by intuition. If I feel to do something, I'll do it. Well, my head's not done this for a long time, but in most people it does, and did for me for until I started to awaken to a bigger picture, and that head comes in and says, you can't do that, you mustn't do that, that's crazy and all that stuff. But you go with your intuition and it works out. And I had this real strong intuition in the second half of last year when I was traveling around the world, talking all over the world, that I wanted to hire Wembley Arena just before Christmas 2012. And it was a massive financial challenge or risk, because, of course, the venues want the money long before the actual event. In fact, we were paying that in February, and it's not until October. Yeah. But intuition speaks, I go with it, because over the last 3 years, it's justified that in the way my life has worked out. Didn't look like that sometimes when I was undergoing ridicule, but it's actually led somewhere just by following that intuition. But I didn't know exactly why. I just thought I need to do this. One of the whys at the time in my mind was I want to get as many people together in one place to have a visual statement. Look, the world's not as it was before. Look at all these people who are starting to see it, and we're not having it anymore. But as this summer has unfolded, and I watched these rituals play out, it's hit me more and more about why that intuition said Wembley Arena, 27th of October. It's because we've come through all this stuff and whatever's to come, we will move into that space where? In London. In London. And, there's an organization in America called the Institute of Heart Math, which does some great work on researching the power of the heart. And that's not just the power of the physical heart, it's the power of the energetic heart, which is this vortex in the center of the chest, part of this, what they call in the East, the chakra system, this wheels of light, their vortex system, which interpenetrates the human energy field. And what they've done, what the conspiracy has done, is taken us out of the heart, which is the power center, the really innate intelligence, far more intelligent than the brain. I mean, one of the things that this Institute of Heart Math has reported is that there are far more nerves going from the heart to the brain than coming the other way. And found that if the heart, and they found that the heart has the most powerful electromagnetic field in the body, when that electromagnetic field generated by the heart is in what they call coherence, in other words, it's balancing, it's balanced and harmonious, and it comes into harmony with the energy field of the brain and the central nervous system, then that takes people in that harmonic state or state of harmony into a totally expanded state of consciousness. And the key to holding that balance and therefore opening that expanded consciousness is the coherence of the heart magnetic field. And what happens when you in fear, when you worry about the future, when you have regret from the past and all these low vibrational emotions, is it shuts down that heart field, and it takes our point of attention from the heart into the gut, what I call the belly chakra, which is where we process emotion. This is why we want to go to the toilet if we're really nervous, because belly chakra impacts upon the intestinal system and the colonic system, etc., and that's where it comes from. We have butterflies in the tummy, as people say, when they're nervous. That's that emotional vortex. And what they've done with humanity in general is massively part of this conspiracy, is they've pulled people out of the heart, where humanity was long ago, eons ago, into the belly. So when people say, when they feel intuition, they say, I just feel I've got to do it. And where do they put their hands often? Over the center of their chest. Subconsciously, they're saying, my intuition, my heart is telling me. And we say, what does your heart tell you? Never mind your head, what's your heart tell you? But more and more you hear, what does your gut tell you? What does your emotions tell you? And we've moved from interacting with the reality through the heart to the emotional level. And if you look at people's responses to situations in the world and in their lives, invariably that point of reaction comes from the emotions, an emotional response. Problem, reaction, solution is the manipulation of an emotional response, the reaction, the emotional reaction, which allows them to offer their solutions. And the other thing they found, and this is all leading to Wembley, it's the same question, is that the power of expressing what we call love in its true sense, not I saw you down the disco, love you,
Fancy you, love, yeah.
Which we have to put words like unconditional in front of to express what we mean. But that real level of love and appreciation and caring and all these things, the electromagnetic power of that coming from the heart is thousands and thousands of times more powerful than the electromagnetic field given off by low vibrational emotion. And I spent 5 hours, 5 hours, well, probably was, 10 hours really over 2 days. But I spent 2 days, all day, in London a few years ago with a Japanese man called Mr. Emoto.
Oh, yeah.
He has become known for taking canisters of water and writing different phrases and putting different words on the side of the water, putting a mobile phone on the side of the canister, loads of other things, and then freezing the water very, very quickly. I've been to his studio in Tokyo where he does it as well on another occasion. And then he photographs the water crystals, in their frozen state. And you can go on the internet and see some of the pictures, but he's produced many books on the subject. But the difference in these crystals in terms of their beauty, their geometrical balance between words of love and appreciation and words of hatred and aggression is just incredible. Words of love and appreciation, you've got this beautiful geometrical pattern in the crystal. And then you see hate, I want to kill you, and all this stuff. And the other crystal is just like it's been dropped on the floor and blob. It's just a mess. And so it's showing very clearly that different states of emotional and mental projection create very, very different energetic states. And, this is really where the conspiracy goes on and where the answer to the conspiracy goes on in this energetic level. In Remember Who You Are, I detail the work of the Aerospace Institute in Stuttgart, Germany, where they found a way of photographing the information in water droplets. And what they did in one experiment was they put a flower in this big canister of water, and then they took it out, and then they photographed individual droplets from that big canister of water, and every one had the flower in him. And they got some people from the local community to go up there, and they got them to take 4 droplets from a big canister of water again and put it into a dish with their name on, 4 droplets. And when they photographed them, they found that all 4 droplets in each dish were the same, but the droplets in each dish were all different to the ones in other dishes. In other words, in that simple process of taking water droplets from a canister or a tank and putting them in a dish, that water had been impregnated by the unique energetic signature of the person doing it. So when I talked earlier about the way they manipulate energy, they are coming from this understanding. So where I'm going with Wembley is this. I've become more and more clearly seen that if we can gather a large number of people, it can be anything between, we've got 5,500 seats at the moment. We can go more, but we'll see how we go. But the more people that we can get in there, we have to make the decision on how many seats it will be in very early August, because new payments are due if we go any bigger. So we've got to make a decision then. But if we get a large group of people there, for what is going to be 9-10 hours, because it starts at
10 a.m.
around 10 a.m. and goes through into the evening with 4 sessions. There's music, 4 sections where I pull different things together, which are all connected, and there's like 1,500 illustrations and stuff like that, all going all the way through the day, and it is the most advanced thing I've done in terms of public presentation so far. I mean, I'm literally this summer and autumn, and the process of it now as I'm writing this book, I'm going back almost to a blank sheet of paper to create this Wembley presentation.
Wow.
So that's how much new information there's going to be and the way it's going to be put together. But that process of bringing together people with open hearts and open minds to come together as one energy field, and when we get together, we're much more powerful than the sum total of the parts. It can create an energetic field and a vibrational impact that will not only negate what they're doing, but can actually more than negate it. That's the difference in power between which comes from the heart and that which comes from the gut, which is where, and fear and all the rest of it, which is where their rituals come from. So this event's very, very important to me because of the way things are going in through the summer in terms of what I'm seeing.
This is more not just a damming of a river, it's a stemming of the tide and a pushing it back as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I got a quote on my website where the ad is for Wembley, and in which I say you can dam a stream and you can dam a river, but you can't dam a tidal wave.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been through the evening. We've been running graphics on our online TV stream, showing people where they can buy their tickets, what the dates are, and everything else. But it is all about that sort of spiritual King Canute phenomenon that you've been, like I say, it's a groundswell of support for 20 years.
Well, yeah, from from being 6-0 down 20 years ago. The other thing about Wembley is at the same time this is happening on an energetic level, I will be laying out, I think, from much deeper in the rabbit hole that I've ever been, the information about the nature of reality, about the way our reality has been hijacked, because that's what the conspiracy is. It's hijacking of human perception. That's what it is. And putting present-day events into context and then looking at how we bring this house of cards down. And that's what it is, a house of cards. And we, silly sods, are holding it up. And the reason we're doing that is because the fact that we're doing it, the fact that the house of cards even exists has been kept from us. But not now. I mean, in the last few weeks, mate, honestly, I've been sat here and my jaw's dropped and I've gone, oh my God, it's so obvious.
I've been very much the same, and I'm sure Steve has as well. What I want to quickly, before we disappear, we'll come back and mention more about Wembley, but the banking sector, all this open judicial inquiry, whatever, it's all a smokescreen because somebody's making money somewhere off this. Well,
in terms of problem, reaction, solution, we have seen such a massive example of this since 2008. I lay out in Remember Who You Are and Human Race Got Off Your Knees how the financial crash of 2008 was orchestrated from the 1980s by a guy called Alan Greenspan, who was the head of the Federal Reserve, and other people that I name, and two of the people that were involved with Greenspan in orchestrating the deletion of checks and balances, which allowed the banking system and the financial system to go into that frenzy of greed and destruction, were Larry Summers and Timothy Geithner. Obama came to power and appointed people to sort out the mess. He made Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, and he's the major economic position was given to Larry Summers. In other words, those that caused the problem were brought in to solve the problem, which of course was to find a solution, which they said was the solution, and that's let's hose trillions of dollars in the direction of the banking system which we represent. And it's gone on, and this whole thing in Europe with the euro is totally and utterly manipulated. It's another massive problem, reaction, solution. There's a number of elements to this. First of all, as well as understanding the mass manipulation techniques they use, like problem reaction solution, and the other one I call the totalitarian tiptoe, where you start, you're going to Z, but if you go there too fast in too big leaps, then people will look up from the X factor maybe and say, so you do it in as big a leap as you can, going from A to Z, your planned outcome, but not so big you hope that you alert too many people to the pattern and the direction and how it's all going. And the other thing that we need to know to go with that, to really start to see the world in a different way, is where they want to take us with these techniques. And that is a global Orwellian state that will be based on a world government dictating to all countries, although countries will cease to exist, there'll be regions, a world central bank dictating all world finance, a world currency, single electronic currency, no cash, massive implications for freedom in that, and among other things, a world army to impose the will of the world government. Now, what we're seeing already are de facto versions of that. We have a de facto world government, which goes under code names like the G8, the United Nations Security Council, and the international community. And we have a world army, which is sent in by that de facto world government to target regimes it wants to remove. And we call that now NATO. It's United States and Britain, but more now it's collectively coming in under NATO. And I was writing in books in the mid-1990s, watch for NATO starting to operate outside of its designated region of the North Atlantic, which is what it was supposedly set up for. But it wasn't. It was a stalking horse for the world army. So when you understand all those things, you can start to put things like what's happening in the euro in context. First of all, the euro was never an end in itself. The end in itself is a single electronic currency. So there was always going to become a point, and there will, if we allow it to happen, where the euro will cease to exist and will be absorbed by the world currency. That may not be soon, but we can see the mess the euro's in already, and that's manipulated. And so the euro was brought in for a simple reason, to in one fell swoop delete all the currencies of those European countries that went into the euro. So suddenly the mark's gone, the franc's gone, the guilder's gone, the lira's gone, and all that stuff. And it's a stalking horse for deleting all those currencies on the road to the single electronic currency. So, of course, the euro's not meant to work, but it's doing its job. What we're seeing now is because they're crashing the euro and they're causing this mayhem in Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal, this gang at the center of the European Union, which are just front people for this network I've been exposing all these years, people like Herman von Rompuy, Rumpy Bloody Pumpy and his mate.
And Angela Merkel.
They've come out this week and proposed, in effect, the deletion of what's left of any kind of national sovereignty to centralize power in Europe to solve the problem of the euro crisis. It's all been manipulated and planned for a very, very long time. There was a guy called Monnet, Jean Monnet, who was a Frenchman, you won't be surprised to know, who is down as the father of Europe, the father of the project which has become the European Union. And he said in a letter to a friend the day after I was born, April the 30th, 1952, that the European superstate was going to be created in a series of steps without the public realizing those steps were connected, and each step, this letter said, was going to be justified by an economic excuse. That's not the wording, that's what he says. I can give you the exact wording if anyone wants to know it. But that's the gist of what he said. And we're still seeing it. This is what this Euro crisis is. It's creating more excuses to push this project on of the centralization of power in Europe and deleting sovereignty. And people like David Cameron and Blair before him, with the irrelevance in between them of Gordon Brown, are in on this. They know this is the case, and they make all, and this guy, Foreign Secretary William Hague, they know all this, and they make these public statements about not letting any more sovereignty go, and we're going to stand up against Europe. And what do? They don't. Excuse me, they don't. Here's the quote from John Monnet. Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. 60 years ago, he said that. And
that sounds something very similar to what Adolf Hitler wanted back in 1933.
You're right, mate. He wanted a United States of Europe, which the Nazis controlled. And what we have is now a United States of Europe, which Nazi minds actually control. And it's interesting, this whole European thing. It's such a scam. It's unbelievable. We had something called the Soviet Union. And that was the big, bad Soviet Union. Oh, Cold War. We got a Cold War. We got a problem. We created it. We're telling you that. But, we need a great expansion of nuclear weapons because of the Russian threat and all this stuff, the Soviet threat. And then they broke the Soviet Union up. And they did it on purpose through one of their frontmen called Mikhail Gorbachev, who was a frontman for the Rockefeller and Rothschild families. And down came the wall, and the idea of that was they'd got to the point in their time scale, they wanted to break up the Soviet Union, which they'd created, to start to bring in and absorb countries of the former Soviet Union into the European Union and into NATO. And so now we have a European Union, which has more countries than the Soviet Union, essentially controlled by bureaucrats like the Soviet Union. I mean, dissidents that came to the West out of the Soviet Union to escape that have actually said publicly, the European Commission is nothing more than the Soviet Politburo. Is to have this illusion of democratic accountability in Europe, is to have a European Parliament which is ludicrous. It has no power. Often in debates, they switch the microphone off after 2 minutes if you go over. And it's not even in the same place as Commission, which is in Brussels, the heart centre. That's where NATO is. It's off in bloody Strasbourg. And so it's like, you go off, don't worry your little heads. You have your silly debates that have no power. And we'll get on with it in Brussels. So it's literally the Soviet Union. It's the Soviet Union of Europe, and they have done it by this process of problem, reaction, solution, and the totalitarian tiptoe. So you have your Maastricht Treaty, takes away more sovereignty, centralizes power. Oh, that's it now, and oh no, now we just need this Lisbon Treaty, this tidying up exercise. And of course, with the Lisbon Treaty, they crossed the Rubicon into so much power being given to the center that they can now do what they bloody like, basically, and are doing.
Well, therein lies a completely new strand that we will pick up when we come to see you in Wembley, David.
Well, that would be great, mate. It'd be nice to meet you.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to catch up. Your brand new book, Remember Who You Are, is out now. You can buy it at davidicke.com from the bookstore there. Steve, any more last words before we've got to let that? Because thank you so much. We've kept you so long this evening, mate. Thank you.
I'd just like to say this to David. Thank you very much. I have a friend who whose partner is quite a well-known TV news person. And this friend of mine is very politically oriented and very clever. I brought some of this stuff that we've
been doing, yeah,
talking to this person and opened up a debate. She thought I was insane.
Absolutely.
It kind of struck me that a very intelligent person would not kind of start putting these dots together and seeing what was going on.
Very closed mind.
Well, this is a very interesting area because I obviously worked in the BBC News and I saw the mentality there. And see, we confuse intelligence with being conscious. The 5 sense left side of the human brain can, on the level of perception of the 5 senses, appear to be clever. It can appear to be intelligent. But that's from what point of observation? From the observation that the world is as that mentality thinks it is. And therefore you have an intellectual debate. But what is the intellectual debate? It's based on a tiny band of possibility which the intellectual accepts is possible, is the band of possibility. From the point of view of being conscious beyond mind, those that appear to be highly intelligent are incredibly stupid and short-sighted and blind. And the newsreader and the Richard Dawkins in science, the doctor that believes what he's told at medical school, they're all coming from the same basic intellectual level. And there's a difference between being clever on an intellectual level and being wise. For instance, it's very clever to know how to create a nuclear weapon. It's not wise, however, to do so. This is the difference between cleverness and wisdom. And cleverness without wisdom is the most destructive force on earth. And that's why we have the world that we have. And when you go into journalism, you go through a process of becoming more programmed than the general population often. Your life is arriving in the newsroom, reading the morning papers, which are giving you the system's version of everything. You watch the newsroom television, BBC 24 or CNN, which is giving you the official version of everything. The journalists around you, in terms of the newsreader, who are writing your script, which you're reading to the nation to program them with a program that you've been programmed to accept, is telling you the official version of everything. So basically all you're receiving throughout your life in so-called journalism is the official version of everything. And this program becomes so ingrained that it repels all borders.
Yeah.
You put something different to it, then it literally cannot compute it. And more than that, it now has a massive personal stake in what you're saying to them not being true. Because if it is, they first of all, if they've got any decency, have to look again at what they're doing with their lives, telling people lies every day. Secondly, they've got to look at their life and their career in journalism and accept that they've been believing and communicating not only nonsense, but coldly calculated nonsense for a particular end all their career. Now, only a few people are actually going to have the sense of self-security to do that. And so the biggest, or one of the prime ways that people are held in these boxes of perception is by denial that they're in a box of perception. Therefore, they will never leave it because they're denying they're in it.
Absolutely.
This
Absolutely.
is journalistic profession is doing all the time. It's denying that it's in a box because it can't face the realization that that's what it is. So it's much easier to ridicule those that put another view than to accept that they could possibly have any validity. And that's the same with Richard Dawkins, Dogma Dawkins, as I call him. Richard Dawkins has a massive, all-consuming personal stake in not moving from this position, which has made his name as a great intellectual.
And I think there I'm going to have to let you go because we've kept you long enough, and thank you so much.
I'm going to have my tea now at 20 to 10.
Look, David, thank you so much, and on behalf of myself and Steve and Derek, it's been fascinating talking to you yet again, and I hope to do it all over again, maybe sometime before Christmas. But I know you're busy. Can't wait to read the new book that you're writing now, because the one I've just read, Remember Who You Are, is just something else. And thank you so much once again for being on the show.
Kind of you. It's a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
You take care, man. All the best.
Bye.
Love and light. Take care.